Hey everybody, welcome to the Backyard Professor live show tonight. Tonight I've got a terrific show that is a very powerful demonstration on what the difference is between scholarship and apologetics. Let's get this show on the road. All right. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. I would like to begin my show by eating an Oreo cookie for my friend Dan McClellan. Those of you who have not been paying attention to him in the last couple of days really need to go find his reference. Oh, you can't see it. There we go. To Oreo cookies. I want you to see that Oreo cookie. Oh, wait, you got to do it right. You got to, twist it off. There's the one without the cream. There's the one with the cream. These are going to be inspiring to me tonight. If you watch Dan McClellan, you'll understand. So not only am I using his Oreo idea, but tonight I will have recourse to utilize Dan McClellan as well on my subject. But first I have to get my energy with my Oreo cookie and the important symbolism on it. Those of you who watch McClellan will know what I'm talking about. The rest of you, you're missing out. Looks like Doug Vincent's seen it. That was the best Dan McClellan response I've ever seen in my life, man. All right. Okay, so I have been, we need to be grateful to apologists for, without even intending to, some apologists, especially those online, showing us the essential necessity for critical thinking. And I hate using critical thinking because that turns off about 90% of the people because of the vast ignorance of what critical thinking is all about, right? It's not critical as in negative. It's critical as in careful, thorough, thoughtful, engaging your brain, not looking just for parallels like we are going to see happening tonight. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road and let's get started with what I mean. I have lots of slides I'm going to share with you. Here we go.
Recording this episode, and at first we were like, oh yeah, there's a couple cool things. After recording and watching this again, it is much more insane than we even thought. Guys, the Book of Mormon is true, and all the naysayers are slowly losing their grasp on all of their arguments that make it sound like we're crazy to believe that the Book of Mormon could have happened.
They live in a naive fantasy world, don't they?
That the Book of Mormon could have happened.
Dude, gold plates, priestly minority records, fleeing through Arabia, temple,
the tree of life.
The tree of life. Dude, it is all here. And this is like a bunch of Gentiles. This is like a bunch of Gentiles who are like, oh, we found this in construction sites in Saudi Arabia. This is going to blow your minds.
I thoroughly doubt that, but show us what you got.
Gold plates in Saudi Arabia. Wow. Right? Big deal. Right where Lehi's family was traveling, this could establish the veracity of the Book of Mormon by providing an additional confirmation that people were writing on gold plates at the time. So perhaps like many of you, I had a whole bunch of people on social media and friends texting me, sending me a link to a video that came out from the Stick of Joseph YouTube channel, in which they analyze what's going on here with the claims of these gold plates coming out of Saudi Arabia. So the question for us to consider today is, are these plates real? Now, I've seen a lot of hype, but we're going to put on our critical thinking hats to try to get to the bottom of this and figure out is this legit or not? And I think
So not all apologists are quick to jump on the Hugh Nibley method of just hurry up and find a bunch of parallels and pretend like it's supporting the Book of Mormon. So there might be a glimmer of hope.
Israelites writing upon metal plates, fleeing from Jerusalem, all this temple symbolism and imagery, supporting the plausibility of the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, and they claimed it was written by ancient authors upon gold plates, if this is in fact something that was historically done. Some say this confirms the Book of Mormon, and that the critics will now be confounded as more truth is springing out of the earth, supporting the divine origin of the Book of Mormon. And you can see there's been lots of people who have been sharing this and making comments how this is some like cool new evidence. However, it appears very likely that these artifacts that have been found could likely be forgeries.
Could likely be forgeries. I'm going to up that likelihood absolutely phenomenally tonight with what I've discovered. I say what I've discovered, what I've learned. Let's keep watching.
Cool. So it is royal and it's messianic.
It's royal. So when it comes to Joseph too, the tribe of Joseph itself was symbolized by the wheat stalks. Let's look at this real quick. Let's go back to the seal.
It is a little wheat stalk.
Could that not be, especially that bottom one?
It could be a head of wheat. Yeah,
Maybe,
that's
who
very
knows?
interesting.
I don't know. That's an interesting. But the idea of seed, the idea that the tribe of Joseph would be preserved and would be a branch going over the walls. Right?
Yeah,
so, that's very Book of Mormon-esque.
This is very. We're not done. It's going to get more. It's going to get Book of Mormon-esque-er.
The essence of apologetics is to immediately start looking for confirmation without being sure that what you're using is credible. I will show this over and over again tonight. And the reason this touches my heart is because I came out of apologetics. You guys, I would have been on the Stick of Joseph show 10 years ago saying what they said. I thank God he finally helped me turn my brain on. I am so serious. Let's keep going.
The internet's been ablaze these.
So it is
because of a gold book purportedly found in Saudi Arabia with Hebrew inscriptions on them. I get why people are excited about this. I mean, they look like the gold plates of the Book of Mormon. It seems almost too good to be true, and that's because it is too good to be true.
Come on, Scripture Central. You gotta give them kudos. Yeah, on most of their stuff, they really get wild and crazy, like with their Nahom junk. But hey, I give credit where credit's due. Hats off to you, Scripture Central. Color me as half impressed.
That Joseph Smith just made up.
maybe wasn't crazy times back in 1829.
Dude, this is so crazy.
Yeah, we live in a weird
something
times, Aiden.
sacred to these people.
Oh, we wrote on gold because it was
so
sacred.
That's what they're writing on. This, you can see
Okay, so he said right there. I'm just gonna rewind back because we.
the intent. The fact that it's done in gold means it's something sacred way, and that was obviously the intent. The fact that it's done in gold means it's something sacred to these people.
So, yes, because he talked about the lead plates, right? He didn't talk about the sacredness on those. Those just like it was our normal record.
Administrative.
But the
record
more
of the kings.
sacred parts, like maybe the small plates of Nephi, were written on gold.
Huh. Oh.
Dude. And
like
dude,
I said, I'm thinking.
And the temple stuff too. The fact, because where do you find the majority of the temple in the Book of Mormon?
Well, it's all over, but the small place is super
It's like dense,
Yeah,
right? And
super
so
dense.
maybe it's this thing where it's like, obviously, the ark was made out of gold. The temple was made out of gold. So when you write about the temple,
menorah is made out of gold.
you write
it on gold. It's so interesting. This is why I was watching this, going like, man, if this is a prank, it's like the smartest prank ever, and it's like a prank designed to get specifically me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know who this is.
Specific
Props
weirdos.
to this guy. I don't think it can be a prank. There's too much of this is just exactly right.
There's too much that's just exactly right. They don't grasp that that's what makes the prank the forgery. so damn good is because it exactly gets so much right to a naive person who simply is going to accept it because of getting so much right. Whoosh, that went right over these guys' heads. Amazing. Now that's apologetics, because the only thing they're thinking of is, look how much alike it is with the Book of Mormon. Now let's look at a scholar.
I'm aware of the Rude Awakening channel. That gentleman has a presence on TikTok and elsewhere. I've responded to a number of his videos in the past. I'm pretty skeptical of most of his claims. I'm interested to see how this progresses, if anybody picks this up, or if this is just kind of a something that nobody would have noticed had not a bunch of Mormons suddenly become interested in it. But I think that's probably what it's going to end up being.
Well, what I think, just to kind of think, because my mom's been watching.
This is from my good friend Steve Pinecker at Mormon Book Review, who interviewed Dan McClellan. And notice that McClellan knows the background to this entire YouTube channel. You didn't once, and you won't once tonight. We'll have plenty of opportunity to listen in on how these apologists got suckered. You won't hear them once even try to understand the background to the YouTube channel. And that's critically important information. But hey, if it's getting so much right with the Book of Mormon, who cares who the YouTubers are? Critical thinkers, that's who. Let's keep watching.
Cow. So right there, two other Book of Mormon motifs. Once again, the tree of life that is described as Mary, essentially, in there, and then the Son of God as a serpent.
Give me the translations yesterday. Seriously. It's going to take them 40 years.
What is written on here?
Or they'll never appear because someone will buy it for his private collection. I want to read this stuff now.
And if they're watching this, they probably just think we're crazy. Guys, take this seriously.
Right.
I promise you'll find amazing
this
stuff.
This is a Mormon homeless guy.
No, I am not going to take any of this seriously, because it's a clumsy fraud that took you in hook, line, and sinker. But your naivete, that is duly noticed.
So, in short, if you just look at the gold plates on their own, and you know how these languages work, you know how ancient writing works, it's very clearly a forgery. But beyond that, we can connect directly the production of these gold plates to the production of the Jordan lead codices, which can be connected directly to the production of the Copper Codex, which is indisputably a modern forgery.
And you certainly won't see any of that kind of careful analysis from the Stick of Joseph boys either, because they're apologists. The first thing you do is never, with an exciting archaeological discovery found and presented to the world, the first thing you do is check into its legitimacy. You do not do the apologetic two-step and begin finding parallels like Hugh Nibley did. You guys need to let Hugh Nibley's method go. You need to get rid of it. It's killing your credibility. Now I'm only allowed 10 slides on this at one time. I've gone through my 10. Hang on, and I will grab the next slide, and we will keep going. This will take me just a second.
Brown, and one thing that we want to say as well, share this with so many people. Guys, we need to share this. This is insane. This video that we're watching is on a channel called Shabbat Night Live. I think it's a Jewish channel. It has about 9,000 views. So nobody knows about this. And this is the first time that this stuff is being shared publicly, as far as we understand. So this has to be shared in all of our circles. Send it to your family group messages, your friend group messages. Have their minds blown. Second thing,
Apologetic zeal without knowledge. My serious advice to all you apologists is you begin to read your own scholar, Hugh Nibley, his article, Zeal Without Knowledge. It's in his book, Nibley on the Timely and Timeless. I suggest you seriously read that and you seriously take it to heart. You need his wisdom now more than ever because you've forgotten it. That would be my advice. Let's see what else they have.
It is insane. It is. You could not have asked for like a more on the nose corroboration to have come out right before this book comes out that says, why, yes, indeed. Priest writing about temple things on gold plates. This, in fact, is a thing that happened.
And they left Jerusalem, traveled through Arabia.
Through Arabia. Yeah. So watch the video. It's going to blow your mind.
Link in the description for the book.
So really, truly, Dave here has a book that he just published, and this came out shortly after there. And so they are going to promote his book in this essay, in this YouTube video. There is their motivated reasoning because they aren't only tying in this complete sham of a discovery into the Book of Mormon, but Dave is now able to tout his own book. Oh, you've got to buy this book because I've already discussed a lot of these parallels and this background information, etc. And this is confirming my book as well. That's motivated reasoning, and we will see, as I caught them time and again, inventing parallels to the Book of Mormon that just aren't there. It's apologetics we're seeing in action. It is not scholarship, and it really does harm their credibility without question.
The temple imagery from King Solomon's temple found throughout the Book of Mormon. So you're going to hear us talk about those sort of things, and I hope you don't get kind of lost in the sauce because it takes some time to learn it. But to break it down simply, Solomon's temple was broken down into 3 parts. You had the porch that had 2 giant pillars. Then you had the Haykal, and that's where a lot of the ceremony took place. You had a feast with the Lord, and you stood before the veil. And then there is the Holy of Holies, the final room. Now, in that final room was a menorah which represented the tree of life, the same tree of life that Lehi saw. So essentially,
so not only are Mormons absolutely excellent at Mormonizing the Bible and everything else, but they're excellent at Mormonizing archaeological forgeries as well. There's none of this in this forgery at all. And the parallel with the menorah as the tree of life in the Book of Mormon is a stretch at best because the Book of Mormon never identifies the tree of life as the menorah. The physical description in Lehi and Nephi's dream does not correlate with a menorah. This is just Mormon enthusiasm to build up a false sense of parallels that really don't work. That's the problem with the apologetic approach. And I'm going to say that over and over again tonight, because that's what happens.
Before we get into the actual video, so he's going on an expedition in Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
The person who's helping
Sounds like a
up.
Bible lands tour kind of thing.
Yeah, and so the person that's helping him organize it all is like, hey, I have this friend, this Arab friend.
Right.
He has something special he hasn't shared with anyone. He wants to share with you.
He wants to share with you.
And so then this is where he talks about what the guy shows.
Actually sharing.
And the first thing he pulled out was this book with pages of beaten gold.
How big is this book?
About the size of my 2 hands here.
Okay, so 5 inches tall. About the size.
So the thing that's cool is, like, I think a lot of times we do a really bad job at showing what the golden plates actually look like.
Notice again the naive, over-dramatic excitement and reaction to this thing from these apologetic guys. Now, here's the interesting issue. We have no provenance for this stunning archaeological discovery. That is a red flag. Like Scripture Central probably said, if it appears to be too good to be true, it is too good to be true. You Mormon apologists, You seriously need to adapt that as your gospel, because this is too good to be true. It's almost as if they knew who was going to respond this way. Interesting idea for you Mormons to ponder. Just in case you think I'm kidding, there's no background information on any of the discoverer or why this unnamed Arab even agreed to meet with strangers and show them these relics. Things like that just went right over these guys' head. And that should have been the very first thing they questioned. So we shall go on to see what else we can find.
Like we think of them as like these solid gold plates, and we use the word plates, right?
Right.
But the way it's described by Joseph Smith is a gold leaf book. He could actually bend it, and you could hear the plates rustle as he bent them.
Interesting.
So this idea of beaten gold fits perfectly.
Right.
All right, hold on. I've got Dan Vogel. Welcome, all of you guys. I'm seeing you. I'm watching the channel. I've got Dan Vogel in here. Have you ever heard that description of the Book of Mormon plates being so thin that Joseph Smith could bend them and rustle them? I've never heard that. My suspicion is he's stretching to make a parallel. Let me know, Dan, if you would. I'm going to go on to just drop a note in the line in the chat. I'm going to go on with this because I think he's just attempting to make another parallel that really is not there in any way. Doesn't matter if it is because it's a forgery anyway.
Holding a gold book in your hand is exciting enough, but that's not the thing that really excited me. It was right there. You can see on the book a signet circle, and I'll give you a better look at it. A signet circle with the Yod He Vav He.
So I think that's a seal at the end of the book is what that is.
Okay, so right there, he's showing the seal. I'm going to go back to it. And it has these writings. What does Yod He Vav mean? For those who
Yod He Vav He. Those are the names of 4 letters, and they're written there on the screen as YHVH. That's an English transliteration. That is the name Jehovah, or pronounced Yahweh, or rather than say it, you'll hear like observant Jews, for example, will sometimes say something like the name or Hashem, or they'll write G-D, right, rather than write God.
So we'll see another beautiful contrast. Thanks for the answer, Dan. Appreciate it. We'll see another beautiful contrast to this Yod He Vav He a little later in the show tonight, where Dan McClellan completely refutes this. The essence and the need for an actual scholar was never greater than in this instance. And we do have one which is going to be very helpful as we move forward in seeing their presentation. I do have other people weighing in here just shortly. First, I just wanted to give these guys a chance to give themselves enough rope to show us what dopey apologetics actually looks like.
That is the name of Yahweh, Israel's God, who we, along with, for example, the John the Evangelist, understand to be Jesus. Okay.
And once again, Mormonizing this, because these are supposed to be ancient Jewish finds, that even if this were actually valid, there is no way that the Jews then would be thinking Jehovah was Jesus. Just so you understand, they are apologetically Mormonizing this archaeological artifact in order to bring the parallel forward to the Book of Mormon. Jesus is magnificently portrayed in the Book of Mormon and named hundreds and hundreds of times, all of which is an anachronism, just so you're aware of that. So their parallels just don't exist. They carry no conviction or weight, even if they were valid, and they are not. Let's take a look. Keep looking.
And then it also has these olive branches on it as well, above and below, it looks like.
Yeah, we're gonna see, Hayden,
and they have
a lot of tree and branch motifs in this program.
Okay, which is interesting because of the book that we have. Here, show this real quick. Let's just do this real quick. This is we're going to talk more about this, but Dave's book that's coming out in the language of Adam that we're publishing with them, it has a lot of this stuff in there.
Yeah, this video. I mean, we've barely started it, but like there is an element of it that's like, holy cow, the Book of Mormon sounds more plausible every day. Like on multiple counts, it lines up with the Book of Mormon.
Yeah,
but also.
All right, so here we see more motivated reasoning for him to sell his own book without question. It's not. This doesn't occur to someone who actually knows the archaeology and how the archaeology works. So this is a very faulty way to look at things. This next one, the commercial broke in on me and I didn't get it removed, so I will do 2 of these quick at once. Apologize for the inconvenience, but you'll get it anyway. It's very obvious what happens.
Of Joseph.
Yes.
It lines up with the Book of Mormon as being a priestly book obsessed with the tree of life, which is the menorah, right? And the repeated branch motif is one of the things we're going to see.
Okay, sweet. Let's keep watching.
A signet circle with the Yod He Vav He in it.
Honeybook keeps your proposals, contracts.
That's what interests me.
Wow.
That caught my attention right away. You had in the ancient letters, you have the Yod He Vav He. This is obviously a Hebrew artifact that has been discovered in Arabia. So these are the archives from the archives of the Beni Quareza, and they are a Hebrew, a priestly tribe that was located in Arabia. There are other Hebrew tribes there too, and we have some fascinating evidence on them.
So this was a Saudi Arabian guy who came to you. Did he know the language of what he had in this book? Did he recognize? Did he know what it was?
I don't think so, because he seemed genuinely surprised when I told him it was the name of Yehovah on there.
So the apologists are thrilled about the Book of Mormon parallels, but they never thought of even checking out this Arabian guy. And they never thought of checking out this guy who says he got the information, this Wilson guy. Now, true, in their second video made a couple of days later, the Stick of Joseph, Hayden said that he did call this gentleman and talk to him, and he felt he was very sincere and upfront and all that. But later on tonight, we'll show why this whole scenario is entirely questionable, something the apologists never even thought of trying to check out, which, of course, destroys their credibility more and more. The more they look into this and the more they try to find some kind of a parallel with the iconography, the worse it gets. Because my real Bible scholar, I will put against any real Bible scholar any of these guys have, and he shows the defect of the iconography, which is pretty impressive investigation and detective work. We'll see that in just a few minutes.
Because he seemed genuinely surprised when I told him it was the name of Yehovah on there.
Wow. That's pretty cool right there. It's like, because you have to remember, Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country,
right?
The Muslims and the Jews aren't getting along super well right now.
Right.
Right.
A little tricky times.
It's tricky times. And so the fact that, like, you're not going to have Arab Muslims coming up with fake artifacts that are Hebrew that would lay any sort of claim to Hebrew presence in their country.
Now, how on God's green earth could he possibly know that? What kind of evidence does he base his rather strong conclusion on? He is just trying to stretch the story so that it parallels and matches the Book of Mormon all the way, and I find it entirely unconvincing without question. And the further we go, the more we'll see why. The provenance makes all the difference.
If this is partly why, who knows what the story is, right? My sense is these two guys, maybe they're Jewish, but my sense is these two guys are maybe Christian, and they're part of like a Bible tour.
Yeah.
And I wonder if whoever this group is that this Arab guy represents found this, and they're like, well, hey, can't really go sell this to any Israelis right now.
Yeah.
But maybe these Bible tour Christians can hook me up with a potential buyer or someone who'd be interested.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of these artifacts we think of them maybe coming out of the ground and going right to a museum. They don't. They go through the hands of people who buy and sell them until.
I don't think they would have been able to translate it. This would take an expert or a institute full of experts. Luckily, I have one, so they brought to the right people. So
I think that's what Rhonda said. Hey, we got some ancient language guys here. Well, we got to see them. There was also 6 other lead books, larger lead books with a number of pages in that same.
Now, here's the interesting thing, too. These guys are entirely ignorant of the provenance, and we are all relying on these two on the Shabbat Night Live to get the facts straight. They claim they have experts, yet their experts have not been able to translate this. Our own Bible expert, Dan McClellan, was able to show that the reason it's not translated is because it's not translatable, and he only looked at it for just briefly. But then he had some background material because he does his scholarly homework that these guys don't have. That's why I contend sincerely, without any malice toward any Mormon apologist, you apologists, you need to drop the Boyd K. Packer paranoia about hating historians, intellectuals, and scholars. That man is dead. Let his stupid ideology go. You need to come up to snuff and begin to insist on working with the scholars, Mormon and non-Mormon alike, assuming, of course, that you want actual credibility, because there's only one side in this whole debacle on the internet that has credibility, and it is the side that did the critical thinking, not the parallelomania goofiness that we're seeing out of the Stick of Joseph. I hope this is a lesson for them to get serious about being serious, about drop the doubt your doubts, and get with your skeptical view and start testing instead of believing. Your church leaders have done you a huge disservice by training you. Notice I'm using the nice word, training you. You can fill in the blank of what I really meant to say because of what it really is. They are training you to just believe what you're told and have faith. Go forward with faith. Believe, because that's the better way than doubt your doubts. I'm telling you, you're being cheated. You need to stop believing everything you read, see, hear, and begin testing, like I'm about to show you has actually happened on this forgery. It's amazing. I've read so many of the comments on all these videos. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mormons have fallen for this thing. They're saying their testimony has been elevated. They're crowing it up. The critics are wrong. Yeah, you guys need to come back to church and all that other bothersome, silly, idiotic, humorous noise. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mormons have been fooled because, of course, these apologists said, hurry, hurry, spread the word, spread the word. Don't think, just spread the word. There's parallels to the Book of Mormon. Oh, my goodness. The amateur apologetic response was never better displayed. And yet, it's time for you Mormons to get serious. It's not about believing and being obedient if you want to maintain your credibility. It's about critically thinking, being very skeptical, and dropping Uchtdorf's stupid little dumb false saying of doubt your doubts. You better put your doubt on front and center on the next archaeological discovery that comes along, proving, say, the Book of Abraham. Because I guarantee you, in this day of AI, you're going to start seeing a lot more forgeries. And if you don't want egg on your face for the rest of your lives, that destroys the credibility of anything you want to be true. You had better start now while you can. That's just my advice. That's assuming, of course, that you want the truth like we do. I'm also quite skeptical of that. I think you guys are looking for the silliness of strengthening your testimonies, which is also based on a forgery. And there's your massive hint for tonight's wrap-up. So we shall go on and see what next comes forward.
Pages in that same bag.
Interesting.
And as well as a box.
So
We're going
the
to show
same
you.
way that the Nephites had some plates on brass and others on gold,
Yeah.
this archive, which we're going to hear describe what the archive
Look
was.
like.
Yeah, keep your pants on for that. That's
Yeah.
very exciting. These guys also had some things that for some reason got onto gold plates and some things that were just written on a cheaper metal, in this case lead.
Wow.
Huh.
And they probably didn't know they were all getting radioactive lead poisoning while
They probably did not, yeah. They probably started drinking water.
Basically, there are 15 lead books when we.
No living being should ever eat.
Yes. That also was an interruption of a very important commercial. So hang on and I will get the next one.
To the treasure trove.
Now, the first question, of course, is, wow, okay, so how old is this thing? What do we have any estimation as to when this thing came from?
Well, we do have some estimation. It's probably at least 2,000 years old.
Wow.
At least.
Really?
It could be older than that. But the information on it is definitely the story of the Israelites.
You have something to say on that?
Well, this puts us in the neighborhood of Lehi. At least 2,000 years old means maybe like zero, the meridian of time, and maybe older than that. Okay. Gold plates, Arabia. This is Lehi's exit journey out of Jerusalem. Let's learn why these folks were in Arabia, shall we?
Yeah.
As they came through, because it is a story basically in both pictures and prose. So, and we have managed to translate enough of it to tell what is going on in here.
So now gold.
So it's very interesting. These gentlemen who brought this information to the Shabbat Night Live. Now, they say they have experts. Why not name the names? Why not bring the experts forward? Why didn't those experts tell these guys the problems with these archaeological discoveries before they went on the Shabbat Night Live show? Don't you find it odd that the first thing someone does when they get the archaeological discovery of the century is to go onto an obscure YouTube channel for the first time to share this information instead of trying to get it validated and published properly? Don't you find that odd? I personally do. Those are red flags to me. The other issue is, how do they know that these things date when they date? Who is it that dated these? They never mention it. No names. Who is it and on what basis? Which evidence and comparative analysis occurred in order to date these to 2,000 years ago? Now, did you notice how the apologists picked up the idea that, see, this is in Lehi's day? No, it's not. He said 2,000 years ago. That goes to zero, the meridian of time, as Dave properly pointed out. But then Dave makes the incredible, astonishing leap. But he did say it could be earlier. And so he immediately jumps it back to where? 600 more years to Lehi's day in order to make the parallels. Now, for me personally, man, that's stretching it. That's not evidence. That is entire speculation. That's not scholarship. That's not how they do it. Here are some questions that I would present to, well, both to the Stick of Joseph gentlemen, as well as the Shabbat Night Live people, those people who were showed by an Arab who remained unnamed in an undisclosed location that they didn't dare tell. All of this is red flags. Only a charlatan wants to keep stuff so secret. Until we figure that out, folks, you're going to be deceived by further forgeries. That's just how it works, man. It works that way with every forgery ever known, as far as that goes. But here are some questions that perhaps might help some future budding Mormon apologists, and maybe the ones who exist right now. When that gentleman, I believe his name is Wilson, the guy who's telling about the discovery and the gold plates and stuff like that, when he said we have been translating, we have experts who have been dating this material, etc. What we want to ask is, who is this we? Who are your experts? Why such secrecy about who they are? Have they published their analysis, their information? Will they share the methods and the styles that they used? Here's what I mean. Exactly where did all these records come from? We don't even know that. They give us a vague generality here in just a few more minutes, but that's not good enough for this kind of an archaeological discovery. Who dated them and what methods were used? Did they utilize radiocarbon dating, for instance? That's quite a popular method. Did they utilize thermoluminescence dating using heat? Who was the expert who performed typology and stylistic analysis of these records? Can any stratigraphy be applied without knowing the object's provenance? That's critical in putting the records in the proper time. They claim they know what time. Well, then who did that type of study? And how, if they only got the plates from a bag? Who was it that actually dug these up in the first place? We aren't told. Who was the epigrapher who performed metallurgic analysis on these? What is the archaeological context? Was any of this done? If it wasn't, why not? Why is Wilson and this other gentleman so enamored with this discovery? Why aren't they questioning the suspect? Or are they in on it? That's the other question that no one has asked yet. Who is in on this? Because Dan McClellan later on this evening will show you exactly what parallels these plates tie into from earlier plates found and discussed in 2011 by a gentleman named David Elkington. And it's not a pretty picture. So, where and how accurate are we to know someone who did this is? Were they knowledgeable in any of these critical fields that I've asked about? Neither of those apologists even thought of asking these questions. They were starry-eyed with imagined parallels to the Book of Mormon, and that is a far less reliable method. So let's go on, because we are left not with any satisfaction to these so-called parallels. We are left in complete incredulity that anyone and everyone, it seems like, has accepted these hook, line, and sinker. That's dangerous for apologists and the rest of the world. Thank you, Steve. That's very kind. Yeah. Oh, love you too, man. You are very kind. So let's keep going and see what else comes up that causes us to explore deeper. Because like I say, this is truly invaluable for all of us. This is a fantastic lesson for everyone involved.
To the treasure trove.
Now, the first question, of course, is, wow, okay, so how old is this thing? What do we have any estimation as to when this thing came from?
Well, we do have some estimation. It's probably at least 2,000 years old.
Wow.
At least.
Really?
It could be older than that. But the information on it is definitely the story of the Israelites.
You have something to say on that?
Well, this puts us in the neighborhood of Lehi. At least 2,000 years old means maybe like older. Zero, the meridian of time, and maybe older than that. Okay. Gold plates, Arabia. This is Lehi's exit journey out of Jerusalem. Let's learn why these folks were in Arabia, shall we?
Yeah. As they came through, because it is a story basically in both pictures and prose. So, and we have managed to translate enough of it to tell what is going on here.
So now
So here's the other issue that really comes to the fore. We don't know the actual provenance, right? So how can Dave be making more and more Mormonish parallels with provenance supposedly going back to Lehi's day, when in fact, we really can't do that. So again, the enthusiasm causes these guys to overplay their hand, and it really doesn't do their case any good at all. I mean, the Arab pulled this out of a bag to show complete strangers. Come on, who's going to buy that story? Sincerely, that was the first huge red flag for me. And they later admit, well, we're hiding the information. We're not going to tell you who we have contact with. We're not going to tell you where. We're not even going to tell you where the articles are, etc. Because eventually we're going to have to work with the Saudi government. Folks, that's a dead giveaway right there, that they're dealing with illegal things going on. And it doesn't even appear like they are aware of this. So there's just so many red flags with this. I can't follow up with it and agree with anything the apologists have said so far. Which is too bad, because actually it could have been really rather exciting. Let me make sure I've got the right slide here. I do believe I do.
Yeah, they need to get
Sketch
some
this
guys
out.
in there reading it.
Because this is wild.
They need to get Margaret Barker in there reading this. We should forward this to I'm going to forward this to Margaret today.
She's going to lose it.
She is. I am losing it, Hayden. I am losing it. Look, there's the menorah tree of life. Oh, here's like a priestly Jewish clan sometime about 2,000 years ago went and buried this record in Arabia on gold plates, in which we've already heard the menorah is all over.
So again, and this is unfortunate, but they're Mormonizing and they're overly super duper excited, and it really just doesn't work in their favor at all that I can tell, which is too bad. But the thing is, they don't recognize that. I hope perhaps my video, I just had a comment in the chat that someone doesn't like the way I'm lecturing my audience, so I'll apologize to those who can't take the way I lecture. It's all good, no big deal. I probably do take them to task too harshly, but they should know better. So maybe I'll calm down, maybe I won't, we'll see. Let me double check here, make sure this is the right one.
Of Patrick McGuire right there.
Wow, you're a hand model, Patrick. How about
Yeah, but here I am holding this gold, and I'm just trying to get it the shadow just right so we could read it.
Oh my God!
But I'm holding it, and it didn't quite hit me what I was holding until later. But the fact that one, it's an antique. I mean, if you melt the gold down itself, it's not going to whatever the price of a couple ounces of gold is. But what's put into this gold is priceless, and it certainly is telling a story. And it was these we think were found somewhere near Medina,
and what priestly line did you say this was?
Okay, so let's look real quick.
We're pulling up Medina?
Somewhere in Medina. Okay, yeah, this is wild.
Okay.
Medina up here. Okay.
So that is basically right on Lehi's
trail.
Journey.
Is exactly on Lehi's trail. So Lehi's trail is going down here, and then he would go through here through the more fertile parts, come all the way down to around Sana. This is where around Nahom is.
Okay, sincerely, it's almost as if someone knew the Mormons would lap this stuff up, isn't it? Because how can they know the problem? We think it came from somewhere near Medina, he says. The Arab, is that what the Arab said? They don't even know the guy. They're meeting this guy through a friend who said she's friend with the Arabs. They meet under clandestine, dark of night, cloak and dagger means. They're not allowed to describe where they're at, etc. And now they say Medina. And you know full well the apologists are going to pull out the Nahom card, of course, because they're trying so hard to force all of this into the Lehi Trail escape route that itself is not even verified. It doesn't have any good archaeology at all. That's one reason why I'm so grateful I have for the last 3 weeks been sharing the Philip Jenkins and Bill Hamblin debate on that Nahom subject. That's not any more credible than these plates are. So, of course, the Nahom thing shows up. You got to figure the apologists would pull that card, and, of course, They do, because you mentioned Saudi Arabia, and to a Mormon, they instantly think Nahom, right? So let's keep going, and we shall investigate more ideas.
Obviously, this important information. So it was akin to each other.
And they said they had discovered it as a construction situation where they found this hollow area, and it was
They were pitching a tent.
Some kind of, and all of a sudden, there's this room underneath there, and all this
they
stuff.
kept hitting the slab underneath, so they cleared off all the sand and dirt and everything. There's this big tabletop slab, and they managed to get it off of the top of it, and there was a chamber going down in there, and they discovered. We saw the pictures. There was a lot of gold artifacts.
Okay, dude. So,
I mean, sincerely, this is priceless. They are swindling the Mormons' critical brain thinking right step by step, yeah? Because you know what they're thinking. Dave's reaction, the starry-eyed excitement of Hayden. Dave doing this and this, like that, like he's just blown away, etc. Because they're looking for parallels, and whoever concocted this thing knew that the Mormons would tune into the idea of an underground chamber with lots of gold artifacts in a cave. They knew the Mormons would tie this to the story of the cave in the hill Cumorah, where they saw wagon loads of plates and the sword of Laban and the Liahona, etc., etc. And sure enough, as sugar's sweet, the Mormons fall for it. If it's too good to be true, then it's not true. Hats off to Scripture Central. They got that one right. These guys did not. I mean, there's a sucker born every man. I apologize for insulting Stick of Joseph like that. But gentlemen, you did this to yourselves. You really need to start studying harder, is my suggestion, in critical thinking and how to doubt, not how to believe. In learning how to believe, you've destroyed your credibility. Now get your credibility back by showing us actual critical thinking skills and analyzing things more carefully. That personally would just be my advice to you. I mean, stop being such a gullible, you know. Your reaction is way, and none of this is confirmed. And the other interesting thing is, if you're going to believe the story, the unconfirmed story of Joseph Smith's cave anyway, then is it really any surprise to the rest of the world, us, that you would believe in this silly concoction of a story also? Of course not. You see, by believing instead of critically thinking, you've now been fooled twice. One with the Joseph Smith story of the cave in the hill Cumorah, and another one with this forgery. How many more times, man? Anyway, not to be the dead horse, but I'm telling you apologists got to get with it. Sincerely, I'm just saying. I know. I come from the apologetic camp. This is how apologists think. This is how they're trained to think. Find a parallel and get excited and share it with everybody. Don't worry about the provenance or actual validity. And that's exactly backwards.
Yep.
That is in the ground.
Yep. And in a few minutes, he's going to talk about it is multiple gold books because they handled at least 2 of the gold books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
In these archives, so we saw the pictures of them. I must admit, I'm much more interested in the information. To me, that's what is precious. You know, the history.
That is a gold lamp of some kind. But...
yeah, than these artifacts of gold, although they're certainly important.
And again, we don't know exactly where this was. No.
Well, we're not disclosing.
Yeah. Okay.
For the protection of the people involved.
Sure.
Yeah, because we hope to be able to get these things out. We'll have to work with the Saudi government. And
can you imagine just digging one day and finding this?
Can you imagine just digging this one day? I mean, they saw the Mormons coming. I can't help it. And this is me being critical, and I don't have any evidence of this, but I don't even trust this Wilson guy, if that's his name. I hope I'm not getting his name right. But I don't trust them either. They are probably in on it because he was linked, apparently, to an earlier forgery in 2011. that was pretty brutally serious. And it was proven to be a forgery. So anyway, and we will see that. So this is all a red flag. The only people who hide in archaeology are the charlatans and the frauds. And it's astonishing that Hayden and Dave don't think this way. They need to. All Mormons need to think this way. Quit being so gullible and believing and start using your brains. That's the best part of your body that God gave you, for crying out loud. Please try to do it. Would be my personal suggestion. Hopefully this isn't the same slide I just did. I think I mixed up one.
Yep. That is in the ground.
Yep. And in a few minutes he's going to talk about, it is multiple gold books, because they handled at least 2 of the gold books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
In these archives, so we saw the pictures of them. I must admit, I'm much more interested in the information. To me, that's what is precious. You know, the history that is
a gold lamp of some kind. But...
yeah, than these artifacts of gold, although they're certainly important.
And again, we don't know exactly where this was.
No. Well, we're not disclosing.
Yeah. Okay.
For the protection of the people involved.
Sure.
Yeah, because we hope to be able to get these things out. We'll have to work with the Saudi government. And
can you imagine just digging one day and finding this?
Oh yeah, I apologize. Yeah, it was the same one. Darn it. I apologize. I'm embarrassed. It's all right. It's all good. Yeah, let's go to the next one. I hate it when I misnumber stuff, but after all, I am just human. There you go. See, I've killed my credibility. Woohoo! So we're even.
In like the Gospel of John, where people, there's Johannine irony is people say things that are true, but they're truer than they realize.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy's talking about, oh, we found all these plates with the menorah and the tree of life on them. What I'm interested in is the precious information.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's exactly what 1 Nephi 11 says, is that the tree of life is precious above all. And 1 Nephi 13 says that the plain and precious things were taken out. But they're going to come back.
Oh, dude.
Right? Oh my gosh. I did not have on my bingo card that the plain and precious things would be revealed through Shabbat Night Live. Right? And a Christian Bible Lands tour group. Like,
that's wild.
This
dude.
is nuts. This is crazy times.
Holy cow. Holy cow. That's an amazing observation.
It is not an amazing observation. It's silly Mormon apologetics being impressed with parallels. That's the essence of apologetics. I mean, we recognize that now. Because there's parallels, they fell for it. So that is a big key even for the biblical Christians. This is what happens with archaeological forgeries in the Holy Land, dealing with the biblical record as well. There are genuine archaeological discoveries that are valid, and I'm going to share some more on my channel. There are also a lot of forgeries, so people have to get more critical in before accepting something, in doing some serious testing. That goes across the board for all of us. This is just a great illustration of why. So while they can yuck it up and all that jazz and invent parallels, in the meantime, they fell for this, which I'm very grateful I wasn't an apologist during this time, because I'm afraid I would have been on their side as well, and that terrifies me. Hopefully I got the right one. Let's see if I did.
In like the Gospel of John, where people, there's Johann.
Nope, I already did that one. Let me do this one now, so I'll get to this one. All right, here we go.
Stone, and there's some idea that you are enthroned, right?
Oh, I got it though. That's awesome, the temple motif, but I think I got a little bit better.
Okay, hit me up.
Don't be mad though. Okay,
I won't be mad.
Nephi.
Okay.
Talked about how he was shown many things.
I can't be mad about Nephi. I always like Nephi.
But that someone else's job was to tell those things. And he was talking about John.
He was specifically talking about John. John is 1 Nephi 13 or 14.
Yes. And so those sacred things,
that might
Mormon probably was reading those sacred things, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that it shows up in Revelations, holy cow, fact that it shows up in Revelations and it seems to correspond to the
super interesting. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it has to
dude.
remain a guess, right? But boy, it's an interesting guess.
I'm gonna have to take a nap after this.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay, so the seals though.
Okay.
That's the point of this. It's really interesting that all these books have seals on them, and that the Book of Mormon also had a seal on it.
Huh. Weird. This is a YouTube video about sealed books.
Yeah.
The amazing thing here is, you guys, a little later tonight, I will show you why even that was designed to sucker the Mormons. Because there's no other archaeological artifact on metal that has seals. Now, notice they're following Wilson's clue or cue when he didn't originally call them seals, but then he ended up calling them seals. And of course, seals on a book on metal plates. Come on, you know the Mormons are going to take this and run like crazy with it, just like these poor gentlemen did. It's part of the fraud. It's what helped detect these as frauds, ironically enough. So, wow. It's almost as if they knew the Mormons would lap this stuff up, and so they designed it just for Mormons. Really, seriously. Hopefully I'll get the next. I don't know why I am off a number. We shall see if I do this wrong or right. Oh, no, I did that one. Oh, let's see. Okay, let me try this one.
It's another Hebrew tribe. There were many. I've studied the history of it.
It wasn't just the Beni Kareza. A different Hebrew tribe in Arabia
Had this one.
made that book.
Okay.
Yeah. This is apparently a thing that Hebrew tribes traveling in Arabia did.
They write the sacred things with menorahs onto gold plates.
And he even said earlier, he's like, well, this is characteristic of Jews in Arabia, unless you think people are going around making gold books everywhere in the ancient world. Like, well,
maybe,
bro.
Crazy.
The Beni Qurayza actually brought agriculture, the use of agriculture into Arabia. If they had all been herdsmen, they had not started agriculture, so they became very prosperous. And there were other tribes.
Now I'm going to ask you more about this book. We got to take a break. We'll come right back to this. That's
all right.
I love this stuff.
Commercial.
Possible. Just before the break, we were talking about this gold book, and Dr. Miles, I didn't get a chance to ask you this before the break, but is this book that we saw on the screen, is it relatively the same size as that first one we saw? You said this was another different book.
It's another gold book from another source. So that indicates there's a ton of these archives.
Now, another
in
source
Arabia.
implies to me
Unless you
that,
think
like,
there's a bunch of people making up gold
it's
books
not from that one
in
archive.
ancient languages.
Yeah, maybe they came across another one.
Right. So, like, there is someone else. Like, the guys are like, by the way, our pals also have some of these books.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the whole point. They only found 2 books. And now Wilson says, oh, there's tons of them out there. Helping the Mormons finish establishing the pattern of, hey, everybody in ancient times wrote entire books on gold plates. When in fact, the only book proper on gold plates is in fact the Book of Mormon. All other writings on metal in ancient times were not books as such. A lot of them were buried under foundation stones in buildings. They were dedicatory plaques, or else they were a bragging of a particular war in which the king won, and it only had just 1, maybe 2 plates is all. The King Darius plates that they tout a lot of, those were the 1 gold and 1 silver. They were identical in content, but the reason they were so important and put in a stone box is because it served as the cornerstone of his palace or temple, if I can't remember which. So anyway, so this whole theme here is that they are accepting, these 2 are accepting everything Wilson says to the gentleman on Shabbat Night Live. Now, it's amazing that the Shabbat Night Live guy just swallows all this too. He is so amazing. Maybe he's too embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe he's too embarrassed to really get critical with these guys. I don't know. I mean, he wants his show to be successful. So yeah, he probably went soft on him. But there's no way with the provenance that these guys presented, there's no way someone with even a half a brain could not help but ask, no, you got to give us better information or we're not buying it. In fact, I would have kicked them off my show. If they would have given a provenance like that, I would have stopped my show. I would have said, you know what? If you can't even give me a realistic background of provenance, I really don't want to talk about this because I don't believe it. So anyway, let's keep going. We're making good progress. We're making good time. We're making better time than I was hoping, which is extremely cool. So let me see if I can get the right one here. Slide 33. Yes, this is it. Okay, now, hold on. So in the Jenkins-Hamblin debate, I ended last week's with the response of Neil Rappley responding to Phil Jenkins, and he used a tactic that Mormon apologists consistently and steadily use, at least until Jenkins responded and rebuttal against Rappley. And it is the same response I respond. Okay, so the Book of Mormon has problems archaeologically, but so does the Bible. And you shift the emphasis. Now you start talking about the incompleteness of the Bible, or the Bible's translated incorrectly, or the archaeological find here and there don't corroborate, etc. But what this does is it takes our eye off of any positive evidence we have in favor of the Book of Mormon, and it shifts it to the negative materials of the Bible, which are usually and often exaggerated. Okay? Neil Rappley got his butt handed to him by Phil Jenkins. Now, in the spirit of fairness, I will say this right now on this particular instance. Rappley somewhat redeems himself. Kudos to Rappley. I believe in giving credit where credit's due, and on this one, Rappley definitely needs to get a hold of the Stick of Joseph people, and he needs to train them on how to critically think, because Rappley did not do the apologetic thing and just begin finding parallels. He went and got an expert from Jordan, and they analyze this. So for the next couple of video clips is going to be Neil Rappley, and I get it. Yeah, he's an apologist. If he would just put this kind of critical thinking onto the Nahom material, his credibility would shoot up 1,000%. But he won't, because he still is, at the end of the day, a Mormon apologist. However, on this instance, he gets proper credit. Sincerely, I was impressed. He did this. This is what should have happened all along. My friend Steve Pinecker at Mormon Book Reviews also did this with Dan McClellan, as did John DeLynn on Mormon Stories, and I have some of that coming up just shortly. In fact, we're right on top of it. But first, I give credit where credit's due. Neil Rappley, I heard him pronounce his name. I've been calling him Rappley. No offense at all meant to you, Neil. I did send a comment on his video, and I told him, you and I don't see eye to eye, but I'm not kidding. You get kudos for this. This is important to give him credit, because it will encourage other apologists to quit being such idiot dinks and believing everything you hear and start using your cotton-picking brains. Neil Rappley leads the way. Congratulations, Neil. Backyard Professor is now praising you a little bit.
Manufacturing a lot of plates, and you don't have machine-made equipment to create like highly precise sizing, right? You get variation in size, in thickness, things like that. So I think, and I think that's germane to what you're getting at here.
And really a lot of items, not just Middle Eastern or plates. I mean, a general thing. If you're looking at something pre-industrial age, there's going to be a lot of hand variations, and these plates don't really exhibit that. Some of them might be a little bit jagged or agate around the edges, but not enough to look very old.
Yeah, well, and it almost looks like, I mean, to my eye, it almost looks like that jagged or ragged edge was kind of deliberately created to try and give it that sense of.
That's what I would think
of antiquity, of age, right? And I think to your point, speaking of just like really kind of any artifact, even things like weights and measures, which are.
All right, look, you may not agree with everything you said in the past, but at least they're looking at the physical characteristics of these. That is not anything we saw the Stick of Joseph people do at all. Rapley went and got an expert. This gentleman is, he's not an archaeologist, but he has lived in Jordan and Israel area for 25 years, and he knows people, and he knows how it's done. He knows about all the recent debacles of the horrible forgeries that have been sold to the museums there and why they're cracking down on forgers and all that. This guy is really good. He's far more credible than Hayden's guest Dave was. Those guys just both sucked it in. So anyway, so this is good. Let me, hopefully I'll bring the right one up. I know I hate to keep saying that because I'm supposed to make this smooth and easy, but here we go. Slide number 2.
Well, when I first saw these, I thought of all the examples of metal plates that I had looked at. And for those who maybe don't know, I have a forthcoming paper that's like 50 pages long on ancient metal plates, comparing them to the Book of Mormon and stuff. 200 footnotes. I mean, I looked at hundreds of different examples of metal plates from the ancient world. I've thought of all of that research I did and just kind of intuitively, I looked at these and they were nothing like any legitimate find that I knew of.
Excellent, solid argument against these Saudi Arabian gold plates. Legit. Now, what I want to ask Neil Rapley is, are you going to take your magnificent research and publish it properly in an actual peer-reviewed journal, a scholarly journal that will accept it, or are you going to put it in one of those stupid invented Mormon journals? That's the issue, for me at least. If you want real credibility, get the thing peer-reviewed. It sounds to me like you're putting a boatload of research in. Why throw that down the toilet just to entertain a few Mormons who are so naive they'll believe anything they hear and see anyway? Why not do the real work and show the scholars that it's all for real? That's my hope of what Rapley will do. This was 2 months ago, though, so I don't know. He's probably already got it published. Let's move on. Quit complaining about the guy. You're supposed to be praising him. I'm not complaining about him. I'm just saying, hey, from my point of view, if you publish that in a legitimate journal, you're getting good.
And the only parallel I could immediately think of, and maybe you could speak to this a little bit, the only parallel I could immediately think of when I saw them were some codices supposedly found in Jordan, some lead codices supposedly found in Jordan about 15 years ago. And those have been highly controversial, generally regarded, there's maybe a few scholars who might disagree, but almost universally regarded as forgeries. And that to me was a huge red flag, because there wasn't a single indisputably legitimate example of metal plates I could think of that resembled these. And the only parallels I could come up with were controversial, most likely forgeries themselves, right?
Exactly. And that's what I noticed when I look at these, because Jordan, especially in the past 20 years, has become a major center for these fake antiques. And they're not really modeled after anything. They're fantasy pieces. And forgers do that all the time.
Okay, excellent. He is aware of the forgeries of lead plates, and he gave a hint. Now, he hasn't explored all of the exquisite details, comparisons with those lead plates. Dan McClellan, later on in my show tonight, just coming up, I'm right around the corner with him, will show those details, fundamentally demonstrating this is a truly clumsy forgery. I have Mormons who, to my comments claiming in some of these videos that they were forgeries, I had Mormons cussing me out. Now, this is 2 months after the video was posted. I just posted some information this week saying those are idiotic, clumsy forgeries. They were cussing me out, saying I was closed-minded because I shouldn't make up my own mind. The jury is still out. The jury is not still out. These are forgeries. That's how this works. You mark it down. Backyard professor sides with the scholars, not the apologists. These are forgeries. The likelihood of this is so vastly much higher than if they're authentic. There is no question in my mind. I will stick by it. And it better be real good evidence if you have to overturn my skepticism. This is how scholarship works. I'm just saying. So let's see the next move. And Rappley has a couple more really seriously excellent points to make that I really, really enjoyed.
Is to convince someone that it looks cool and ancient.
Mm-hmm.
And they sell these for hundreds of thousands to millions, tens of millions of dollars, depending on what they think they can get. And they cast really wide nets. Now, these items, like you said, they don't resemble legitimate ones, but they're most strongly parallel to these fake ones. And we never find them in archaeological digs, but we find hundreds of them elsewhere. It's always a story about either my grandfather found it or my grandfather kept it in the synagogue and kept it after Jews left. I dug it up somewhere in Jordan.
Yeah, there's always some kind of backstory that is kind of designed to sound believable enough, right? And you can even think of, like, in Latter-day Saint history, the Mark Hoffman forgeries, right? Where Mark Hoffman always had this backstory of how he found this artifact that sounded plausible to the people he was trying to sell the document to. But it's you've got to be suspicious when these sorts of things turn up.
Yeah, now here even Rappley is treading on thin ice, because you have to be suspicious when these kind of things turn up. Kind of like when Joseph's convenient story was that the angel Moroni took the gold plates back so that none of the rest of us could examine them. Yeah, stuff like that legitimately makes us suspicious of the other fraud that this fraud is trying to legitimize. Yeah, so there's a little taste of irony here for the Mormon apologists to ponder. I'm just saying, all is not well in Zion, brethren, regardless of whether Gordon B. Hinckley said so or not. Doesn't matter, he was wrong. Although he did fulfill Book of Mormon prophecy, so does that mean the Book of Mormon's actually true? Yeah. Spooky times, isn't it? Okay, moving on.
You mentioned how these are not like based on any real pattern or real artifact or anything like that.
You never get a complete sentence that you can read.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are texts that you can't read, but I mean, it's unusual for all of these to share these features. And with letters facing the wrong way on all of these, I mean...
And even like the combination of text and images is just just drawing on my own experience studying authentic ancient metal plates from the ancient Near East and other parts of the world even. I have never seen anything that creates this combination, this kind of random seeming combination of images and text the way these and the Jordan codices do. And those are the only examples I've ever seen that do that. Yeah, there's nothing there. I can't think of any indisputably legitimate artifact that looks or even feels or comes across as being like these. And having...
Okay, so I get that some Mormons are really uncomfortable with Dan McClellan because he's such a straight shooter. I love the guy. He's fabulous with the Bible and archaeology and ancient history. So if you apologists ever run into something like this again and you see fantastic parallels and all, you can do a second best by going to Neil Rappley at Scripture Central. At least he's straight shooting it. You notice what he says about the looks of these plates. this completely suckered the stick of Joseph. They immediately began pulling out all kinds of inane parallels from all over the Book of Mormon in no logical pattern or order at all, throwing jello at the wall to see what would stick. And they believed everything stuck. They thought they had a 100% bullseye, and they've got nothing but a forgery. So yeah, the rest of you Mormons who have questions, go to Neil Rappley. My advice is Dan McClellan's probably a better source as far as legitimate scholarship, but Neil Rappley seems to have his head on straight for the most part. Like I say, I give credit where credit's due. So let's keep going, and we are making good progress. We're getting into the meat now, I think. Hey, I thought it was. I think this is all meat. It's very important so we can have this contrast. By proving contraries, truth is made manifest. Joseph Smith, like him or hate him, got that one right. Yeah? Okay, let's see.
Are designed to look like actual known legitimate artifacts or imitate real known artifacts. I think of things like, the seals that come out of the antiquities market and things like that. Now, not all of them are fake, right? But that's part of what makes them persuasive and compelling, right? Is there are forgers who are making fake seals that are designed to look like real known seals that have come up out of the dirt in archaeology in Israel and things like that.
And there are top quality forgers.
Yeah. But then there's forgeries like these that you were talking about that are just kind of fantasy items. They're fantastical. They're made to just kind of look ancient enough in the hopes of convincing.
If you don't know anything,
yeah, to people who don't really know a lot.
There's looking at you, Stick of Joseph. Sincerely, time to wake up. Really, truly. If you got this so blatantly wrong, how can we believe anything else you say when you're just as enthusiastic and naive believing everything and anything you ever find? You see, it means that everything you said about the Book of Mormon is out the window until you somehow find a way to gain more credibility. Good luck with that. You're going to need it. So let's move forward, and we are closing in on some really excellent points now. It's all been excellent. Very, very enlightening.
Move on to that. Another kind of narrative that has started to come out is this idea that even if these are forgeries, we can still see evidence for the Book of Mormon here because this story, like we talked about at the beginning, is so similar to the story of the Book of Mormon. It has all these things, and it was believable. People considered that story believable, and therefore this just shows that the story of the Book of Mormon is believable. How would you react to that?
First of all, why do we think it would be a good idea to build our credibility on basis of falsehood?
Right.
I mean, most people are going to look at them and say, well, those are fake and they're so close to yours. And why is yours legitimate? So I think that's a big danger we run into, aside from the fact that, I mean, when we go to the temple, we're supposed to be looking for truth and defending it.
Sure.
So it really is a short-sighted strategy for this, I think.
That is a direct response to the Stick of Joseph's second follow-up video made 2 days after this first one, that they said, hey, everybody, spread the word like crazy. They did, and several Mormons got back with them and said, what in the hell are you idiots doing? They probably didn't say it quite that way, but they were saying, oh my gosh, you guys, you blew it. You blew it. This is a forgery, you numbskulls. But they even tried to justify themselves in this second video that even if this was a forgery, the Lehi story in the Book of Mormon is still true and acceptable by everyone. Not to Phil Jenkins, everyone who already believes in Mormonism, maybe, and that's a big if. But see, they're even inventing knowledge that's not even actual knowledge. So yeah, that one was for you, Stick of Joseph. And now we move on to The good stuff, the really good stuff, it's gone from gold to titanium to platinum, whatever's that. Yeah, gold. Yeah. Yeah, the gold is iffy at best. So here we go. Let's get to the scholarship. Neil Rapoli, thank you. Thank you. You've redeemed yourself somewhat. I'm telling you. Thumbs up.
Similar to what's going on up here. So this is just like the imagery here, and then there are a couple other images. We've got that same menorah. We've got a plate. It's a codex. It's got writing all over it. We've got starburst stuff on there.
And are these from the lead plates?
No, this is all the stuff that they shared on this video.
Oh, okay, got it.
This was all part of the same discovery. And the biggest problem with all of this, and then here we've got more writing. The biggest problem with all of this is you can occasionally make out a word, but these scripts are all a jumble of Old Hebrew, Aramaic script.
You say Old Hebrew, you're talking like Paleo Hebrew, right?
Yeah, so we usually use Paleo Hebrew to refer to people who are writing in a period when the Aramaic square script was in use, but they're trying to make it look old. Okay. We usually refer to inscriptions from like the pre-exilic period as just Old Hebrew.
Okay.
So this is a mixture of newer and older scripts. It is a mixture of Hebrew and non-Hebrew scripts. And then the way they're formed is inconsistent. Like the stroke orders are not always the same, which is an indication this is not someone who is trained in this language. This is not someone who knows this language. They're writing the same characters in different ways each time they write them.
This is why we need experts, folks. Seriously. Hayden and Dave on Stick of Joseph didn't catch any of this. So this is why it's time to get serious about locking our arms and our brains in with the experts, whether they believe in our religion or not. They're experts for a reason, and we need their services so that you don't accept any more forgeries. I'm just passing my advice on to you as a former Mormon apologist who ended up becoming so embarrassed by the abject stupidity of the apologetics with the Book of Abraham that I couldn't take it anymore. You folks are probably going to start doing that with the Book of Mormon when you actually turn your brains on. And I apologize if that sounds so insulting, but we're seeing proof that you guys don't turn your brains on. Not all of you. You know who does, and that's who to go to next time for the rest of you who need help. And that's pretty much most of you. So I apologize that sounds so uppity and parochial and me looking down my nose at you. But I mean, we've seen your reactions. You need to be so embarrassed you need to quit videoing. You need to call it a day and go get a real job.
Thank you for that. I'll just share a tiny bit of history, maybe just to kind of set this up a tiny bit more. So there's, I guess, this YouTube channel called Shabbat Night Live.
Well, kind of. There's a YouTube show called Shabbat Night Live. The channel is called A Rude Awakening. And Rude is spelled R-O-O-D. I believe the gentleman who runs it, his name is Michael Rood. He has a big gray beard, and he likes to record videos of him sitting in front of a fire in a robe looking all Moses-y. And he and I have gotten into it in the past on social media, but his organization is a messianic Jewish ministry that aims to restore the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. And so he, Nehemiah Gordon, and some others spend an awful lot of time trying to argue that the real name of God was not Adonai, as scholars pronounce it another way, but he says it's Jehovah, that is the original way that the Tetragrammaton was pronounced. So there's a history with this Michael Rood figure, but he's the source of this.
So this is more important background that McClellan knew. Now, to give credit where credit's due, the Stick of Joseph after they had this completely embarrassing debacle of egg on their face with their first video, the next day they ended up being so ridiculed, is my suspicion, that they called Dan McClellan. Although they wouldn't identify him by name, they called him a good Hebrew scholar. They got that right. But and Dan told them why he thought they were forgeries. And then they went ahead and defended that they were legitimate anyway. And tonight, now from here on out, for the next 8 slides, I'm going to show you why these are forgeries. There is the likelihood, it's 99% in my opinion. If I'm wrong, great, but it has to be real good evidence to get me to change my mind. That's how to properly assess this stuff. I will happily go on record that says the evidence up to this point screams forgery. So let's take a look at this, because it is so impressive to see the power of expertise and why we need it. Sincerely, we need these guys. We love these guys. We appreciate these guys. We don't give a damn what their religion is. We need their brains. We're very happy they're willing to share. So, nice.
Okay. So to go on with this, Miles Jones, according to livingpassages.com, quote, Dr. Miles Jones has earned 3 degrees in languages and linguistics, culminating in a doctorate from the University of Texas at Austin in 1985. Quote, most recently in March of 2023, Dr. Jones returned from an expedition to Mount Sinai in Arabia to document the evidence of the Exodus found there. On that expedition, he uncovered the archives of the Banu Kurai. How do you say that?
I haven't heard him, but it would probably be Banu Kuraya.
Kuraiza?
Kuraya.
Okay. A priestly Hebrew tribe in Arabia, including a book of their history made out of the pages of beaten gold. Any quick responses to that, Dan?
It's a convenient origin story, and it allows somebody else to kind of be the face of the publicizing. Man, I am having a rough time with that word, but it would allow someone else, someone with some kind of credentials, to be the public face of these things, so that whoever is responsible for them, who probably has connections to unseemly characters, can stay in the shadows.
So it's Miles Jones. I've been calling him Wilson. I apologize, Miles Jones, if that offended you. But yes, I also am suspicious of Miles Jones himself, something that no other Mormon that I saw even thought to ask or question. He might be in on it. We just don't know. The story is shady enough, you know. So anyway, yeah, very good. Let us go see the actual evidence, which to me is so interesting. I love this kind of superb detective work, regardless of whether it meets our beliefs or not, or our expectations or not. Follow the evidence, and the evidence in this case is spectacular.
Well, I was interested in what this gentleman, I think he goes by Mike Jones, but I'm looking him up and it looks like he goes by Miles Jones elsewhere. But his PhD is in foreign language education, so nothing related to this. But he also claims to have discovered ancient Hebrew versions of the Gospels that predate their translation into Greek. So he's suggesting he has the original Hebrew versions of the Gospels, which is a very, very fringe academic position. So already I'm a little suspicious of where he's coming from.
So this is good. This is good. He's just being cautious, which is always called for in this type of a situation. I love that in Dan's repertoire. I also like the fact that he checks into stuff.
In a little signet thing. And when you look closely at this, and I actually have the photo if you'll let me share my screen.
I'll add yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so there we go. So it looks like Yod He Vav He in the center, but it's actually not, because the second and the fourth letter, the He's, would actually need the horizontal lines, the 3 horizontal lines, to be a lot closer together, and the vertical line to extend way down below. And they're not doing that. They're basically backwards capital E's. And then the yod and the vav are also very uncharacteristic of any period of the alphabetic script of Hebrew. So
this is why we need the experts who actually know what the languages look like and can read them, because the Sick of Joseph apologists just simply accepted what Miles Jones told them. And Miles Jones was wrong. Now, the suspicion is this. Miles Jones says they have experts who translate the Hebrew off of these artifacts, and they went on to show full paragraphs of translation. All of that is bunk, according to Dan McClellan, whom I think is an established expert. We know his credentials. We don't know the credentials of Miles Jones's experts. If they would name them, what universities they went to, what degrees they hold, why they are particular experts at Paleo Hebrew, what some of the scholarship they've done, then we would have a better basis of comparing and seeing if their experts really did translate these plates, but we don't. So I'm not just believing Dan for the sake of believing Dan because I want these to be forgeries. I know Dan's credentials. I know Dan. I've interviewed him before, and I will have him on the show again soon, I hope. So this is the difference between apologetics and scholarship, a very important, crucial difference. Let's keep going. Good stuff.
Hebrew rather than composed in Greek. If this is a first century Christian artifact that uses Hebrew, then that would aid in his particular quest and also overturn long-standing scholarly consensus.
Okay. And you're saying even the thing he thought was significant isn't really to be found?
I don't think so, because it's not, the letters are not consistent. The letters don't match up with any period of the Hebrew script that we're aware of. And also the writing that is around it is represents characters from different periods of Hebrew writing. Like there's Old Hebrew and Old Aramaic mixed in with the Aramaic square script, which is the post-Babylonian exile version of Hebrew. And none of it is written by someone who is proficient in this particular script, because the characters are also very inconsistent from one to another. And so this strikes me as composed by someone who does not know this script, is not proficient in this script, and is cobbling together text from chronologically disparate scripts, which just is a red flag that there's something else going on here.
Okay. In addition to how it was found and how it was presented, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why we need experts. None of the Mormon apologists thought of all of that, because they don't know the script. Now, I don't either. I'm not going to brag and say I do. I'm working on it, but that's not knowing it. But we do have a genuine expert who knows. And this is why, again, thank you, Dan McClellan, sincerely. Now, if people are wise enough to begin using his example for our further research, we will all be better off. I won't have to make videos like this ever again on Mormon apologists, because they aren't going to be so gullible anymore.
What you've got prepared?
Well, I wanted to, I'm trying to build a case here that these plates were made by the exact same group of people who produced the Jordan-led codices, which were publicized by David Elkington starting back in late March of 2011. And the overwhelming consensus of experts is that they were modern forgeries. And so I'm going to go through, I'm going to show some of the characters, some of the symbolism, some of the iconography on the few photographs that have been released, and then talk about how this lines up with what went on with the Jordan-led codices, and then show that this is certainly another iteration of this group's attempts to cash in.
So we won't get this kind of information from any of the Mormon apologists. So once again, thank you, Dan McClellan, for your outstanding work on this. Now let's enjoy the show. This will blow your mind.
To the next page here, we have some iconography. You have another attempt in the bottom left of the page on the left, underneath the palm tree, in between the pillar and the trunk of the tree, what looks like the tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He. But here, instead of Yod backwards capital E, Vav backwards capital E, it looks like two Yods, because you don't have a third horizontal line on that second character, and then a more traditional Vav and a more traditional He with that vertical line extending down further. So once again, it's inconsistent and it is not accurate. It looks like Yod, Yod, Vav, He, which would not be the tetragrammaton. And then along the border, you see this, it's not quite the grapevine, but it is kind of a, some kind of palm frond or some kind of border. On the right, you see the grapevine again. You see some more writing. You see a menorah to the left, and then you see above what looks like a man in profile. And this is one of the first giveaways that this is not genuine, because that profile is a man, looks like he's got a laureate wreath on his head, and this is almost certainly some variation on probably Marcus Aurelius in a coin showing Marcus Aurelius in the laureate head motif. And there's no reason that Marcus Aurelius would be represented this way.
Now, did anyone except Dan McClellan see this? That is some phenomenal detective work. Color me impressed, seriously. Fantastic stuff. Let's keep going. Oh, this is powerful too.
But I want to come back to a couple of things. One is the letters here on the left. They happen to look an awful lot like the letters on the bottom right here. In fact, if you line them up side by side, they're exactly identical. However, the writing on the right, you can see what looks like a backwards C, something that looks like an elongated P, a couple of backwards R's, and some dashes, and then like a Y with a little curl at the end. And you can see the exact same line of characters on the left. And I've superimposed these two images, and they are exactly identical. But the one on the right has an additional line underneath it. You can see what looks like it's supposed to be a He, what looks like it's supposed to be a Yod, another little elongated P, which is probably supposed to be a Kaf, another He. And you can just barely make out some of the tips of those characters on the left underneath, but they're obscured by the great border. But the writing on the left has a line above it. And if you look on the right, you can just barely make out some of the bottoms of those characters above the one line that's visible. And so what this means is that each of these plates were made either by hammering out a die or by casting. And both of them are using a die, some kind of source that contains the exact same lines of text.
Superb detective work showing fraud. Fabulous material. Genius. That's called brains. That's called scholarship. I mean, you know. The comparison with scholarship and apologetics is absolutely firmly seen now. And he's not done.
Lines of text. And on the plate on the right, the line above it is visible, the line below it is obscured because they've covered it up with the border that they're using to make the rest of the plate. On the plate on the right, that line above is obscured by other imagery. And so, in other words, somebody has created a die with a handful of lines of text on them, and they're just reusing that die to hammer out text in plates. And so these would all be saying the exact same thing to the degree they're legible. Some of the lines are not legible because the other iconography is crowding it out. So they've gone through great efforts to create these plates, and they're reusing these dies, and they're not even ensuring that everything on the die is visible, is legible. In other words, it doesn't really matter what it says, and the reality is that they say absolutely nothing. It's just gibberish. It doesn't say anything. What's important is that it looks like it says something for people who can't read it. And this is one of the dead giveaways that this is part of the work of the same workshop or group of people responsible for the Jordan-led codices. And I'm going to get to how we know the Jordan-led codices are fake.
This is why we need expert eyes. You notice he's not looking for parallels just yet. First, he wants to establish, are these valid or are they not? And I appreciate that in him so much more than I ever used to. So thank you for your hard work, Dr. McClellan. It is being appreciated and showcased tonight without question, with great joy by a lot of people, just like it was on the Lynn Show.
To one of the Jordan-led codices that was publicized early on in 2011, and this was supposed to be this credit card-sized tablet, and there's a pound coin on the left, but it looks like a bunch of Hebrew text, and for someone who does not know the language well, it looks pretty convincing. But my friends and I who got together and looked at this, one of them is his name's Steve Caruso. He's phenomenal philologist, linguist, but he showed that this is the repetition of two of the same sets of lines, just one over top of the other. And so we have the top line is represented in pink on one side and red on the other, and then the bottom three lines are represented in blue on the right and in green on the left. And when we looked through all of the different Jordan-led codices, they said there were 70 of them. There have been dozens and dozens of photographs that were released or that we got a hold of through other channels. But one of them is this tablet, which is actually where David Elkington, who was trying to promote the lead codices, imagined that the inscription on the top underneath the menorah says, "I will walk in righteousness," or something like that, and told me that I needed to go hit the books again because he had a Hebrew expert who explained that. That's what that says. And I've spoken with that Hebrew expert who says, please don't use my name, and I never want to be associated with these things ever again, because that's definitely not what it says.
Maybe that's why Miles Jones doesn't dare name his experts, because his experts don't know diddly spit either. Maybe Miles Jones needs to get a hold of Dan McClellan, unless he's in on it, of course. I still don't know. So this is awesome. But doesn't that lead plate remind you of the Book of Mormon script that Joseph Smith copied off? It looks very Book of Mormonish, doesn't it? Makes you wonder if they were trying to hook the Mormons again, yeah? Interesting. Fun stuff, learning reality, isn't it? Seriously, this is what I'm all about.
With these things ever again, because that's definitely not what it says. But we see the exact same 4 lines of text being repeated over and over again on this plate as well. We see it on this plate as well. And let's see if I have I don't have the other plate. But these things are being repeated over and over again because it's not important that these texts say anything. It's just important that they look like they're saying something for people who cannot actually read the text, which is a dead giveaway that this is not a cipher. This is not a code. This is just a forgery. These are just things that are supposed to look authentic and ancient, but have no actual linguistic content whatsoever. And this is all gibberish as well. It doesn't say anything. But even if it did say something, the fact that they're overlaid on other lines of text, and some of the lines are obscured and some of the lines are visible and some of the lines go off the side of the page, it means it's useless, even if it is a cipher or a text. And we have something very similar going on in these gold plates. As you can see, the line that is visible on the bottom on the right is not visible. Only the tops of the letters are visible on the left. The line that's visible on the left on the top is not visible on the right.
And this is why we need critical thinking instead of faith and belief. Because faith and belief can lead to you being suckered by a fraud. Critical thinking ups your chances that you won't be deceived. Ironic, isn't it? That's the exact opposite of what Mormonism teaches. This is what a fraud looks like, you guys. That's the point. This is very impressive, at least to me, because I come from the apologist camp. It's fun to see what an actual analysis truly does look like, and I'm so grateful to have this, and I'm grateful to be able to share it with you guys too, because I know you guys appreciate good
left on the top is not visible on the right. Now, I keep talking about the Jordan-led codices, and I want to talk about what we have come to know as or come to call the Copper Codex. When David Elkington published his press release in, I think, March 30th or 31st of 2011, he said, we've got these 70 books. They're covered in ancient Hebrew. These are first century Christian artifacts. And shortly after that, someone shared an email from a classicist at Oxford named Peter Thoneman. And Peter Thoneman said, hey, just be aware, this dude emailed me last year, sent me these 2 photos and said, can you authenticate these? And he was able to show that these are 100% modern forgeries, and wrote back and said, this is an easy one. These are definitely forgeries. And I'll explain why in a second. But David Elkington then released a different set of plates, not this one. And this one is indisputably produced by the same group that made the plates that David Elkington did release.
Absolutely powerful. This is what evidence does for us. This is why we have to have evidence, not just a story, not an anecdote. We need the evidence. This is so powerful. Excellent detective work.
Did release. And I'm going to try to show that the same group that made this Copper Codex and the Jordan lead codices also made these gold plates. So you can see here there's an inscription at the very top. You can see it in the image on the left. There are some iconography and there's a bit of an inscription on the bottom on the right. And then you see 3 faces in profile. You see one that is head on. You see an alligator. And in the upper left, you see what looks like a chariot. And the reason that Thoneman was able to demonstrate that this was a forgery is because that inscription up on the top is gibberish, unless one realizes that whoever wrote it just could not distinguish a majuscule alpha from a majuscule lambda. And so when you actually replaced the correct, when you actually put the letters in how they were supposed to be, it is a fragment of an inscription. And it is specifically the second line from a funerary inscription that was published in a book in 1958 and is on a funerary monument that is on display in a museum in Amman, Jordan. So in short, someone who did not know this language copied the second line of this inscription off of this inscription onto this plate and confused the alpha and the lambda. And so this is definitely a modern forgery. Hang on, I'm just going to do one thing here.
This is why it's so much harder to fool experts than it is apologists. This is why we need the experts. That is phenomenal detective work. I sincerely hope you guys are appreciating what Dan McClellan is showing us here. This is incredible. I mean, he's systematically dismantling these forgeries, and he's showing us why. That's what I love about the man. He shows us why. And that's what I love doing on my channel. I don't want to just tell you, yeah, they're forgeries. I want to show you why. And I will do it with proper experts, not just me saying so. I love this stuff.
Right. And one of the other reasons we know this is because this is why I have it in edit mode, is so I can edit while I'm going. Okay, so the chariot that's in the top left of this copper codex matches exactly this image in this coin on the left. But this image of this coin on the left is a modern fake. It is not actually an actual ancient coin. It is from the last few decades. And so the impression that showed up on the copper codex cannot have been made more than just a few decades ago. And I want to show you another example of this with one of the other images of the face in profile. So if we go back to the copper codex on the right, just below the alligator's head, you see this image in profile. And this is an image of Alexander the Great in a lion headdress. And we know this because it exactly matches this modern fake Alexander the Great in a lion headdress coin. Every bump on that impression on that copper codex matches that coin. So these are coins that you can buy on the internet. And so this copper codex is 100% fake. I thought the other face in profile on the bottom left looked an awful lot like a buffalo head nickel. It doesn't match exactly. And obviously the other face on the left with the horns has been, some die was created using some kind of either larger coin or some kind of something, plaque of some kind.
So what comes to my mind when I watch this was the very simple fact that all of this so-called temple imagery, all of this iconography for Lehi or for the Book of Mormon, it's all fake. There is no actual parallel. So again, we catch the Mormon apologists simply Mormonizing from a fraud that doesn't do anything to help legitimize the fraud they're trying to support with the fraud. Can you get any thicker with irony? But folks, this is why we need experts. Yeah, I am so impressed, and we're not done. Hold on, we have more, and it's just as good. McClellan just rocks the house.
Plaque of some kind. And so these are entirely fake. And when we go back to one of these codices from the Jordan-led codices, from which David Elkington claimed that someone translated, "I will walk in perfection." On the bottom of this, you see a tree, a stylized tree with some of those starburst images. And that tree matches in every imaginable detail the same tree that is on the copper codex. So if you look very, very closely at this, every bump on there is identical. I think the copper codex was probably hammered, whereas the lead codex was probably cast. Because it shows indications in the lead codex that whatever the dye they used to create the impression and whatever medium they were using for the cast, it moved around a tiny bit. But everything is exactly identical. So the producers of the copper codex are the producers of the Jordan lead codices.
This is the smoking gun for fraud, and it was just this tree of life imagery that got the excited apologists to rant and rave about this phenomenal parallel in support of the Book of Mormon, and it's not. Let's keep going. This just gets better and better. Just when you think it can't get stronger, McClellan comes through again. It is staggering.
I'll point to one other one. And this is without noting that all of the Hebrew characters on here have all the exact same problems, and many have the exact same shape as the characters on the gold plates. But on the upper right, you can see a piece of wheat. And if we zoom in on that, I don't have a better photograph. This is the best one I have. But if you zoom in on that and you look at it carefully, that wheat is identical to the wheat that has been impressed into the gold tablet on the right. It's there. The edges, particularly on the left, they wanted the inscription in the gold plate to run over that. So whatever they used to create the impression and whatever medium they were using to create the mold, that went over top of the left edge of that wheat iconography. But whoever made the lead codex on the left is also responsible for the gold codex on the right. And you can also find the same kind of trim, these grapevines. I don't think I didn't include enough of the Jordan lead codices, but you can see some of the trim on here has the some of that stylistic, particularly up in the, I can't really highlight anything, but in the upper left, you can see the same kind of border that you see on the gold codex on the left here. And then you can see grapevine.
Superb detective work, and you see nothing like this out of any of the apologists. The difference between apologetics and scholarship is strong in this one, this video, this live show. Yeah, sorry, can't help it. I got to toot my own horn periodically, not too often though. I've got to stay humble because I am small meat and potatoes. Hit the like button for me, would you guys, and start leaving comments in the video, because that helps the algorithm. And throw a few dollars my way if you don't mind. It helps keep me going as well. I hate asking for money. That's why I don't hardly get any, except from a few diehard patrons whom I love and appreciate. But I love and appreciate all of you. Anyway, it doesn't matter if you send me money or not. But a dollar here, a dollar there, it truly does help, sincerely. This takes a lot of time and work to put together, I promise. Thank you, regardless. I love that you keep coming and listening to me.
If I have, yeah, you can see the grapevines on the right, on the codex on the right. The starburst images are identical across the different codices. So, in short, if you just look at the gold plates on their own, and you know how these languages work, you know how ancient writing works, it's very clearly a forgery. But beyond that, we can connect directly the production of these gold plates to the production of the Jordan lead codices, which can be connected directly to the production of the copper codex, which is indisputably a modern forgery that had to have been executed within the last probably 30 or 40 years. And oddly enough, if you get on social media, on TikTok and other social media sites, you can find videos of people. It's always grainy videos. Usually it's somebody wearing white gloves in some dark home or cave or something, pulling out some ancient looking scroll or tablet or something, and then flipping through the pages. And it's always the same stuff, same iconography, the same jumbled and confused characters, the same little starburst symbols, the style, the whatever means of production they're using here are always the same. So there's somebody out there just mass producing forgeries like this. And the most organized they've gotten is when they got in touch with David Elkington. They got organized. They shot themselves in the foot with a handful of things when it came to the plates they were producing for David Elkington. They've made some improvements here. Like, they've gotten closer to producing some actual Hebrew words on the golden plates. But they have still, they're still just transparently modern forgeries.
Transparently modern forgeries. All the evidence points that direction. Yeah. One last one, you guys. Thank you so much for all your support and your love and your help. And thank you for coming back and enjoying the chat, family, as well as watching the Backyard Professor do his thing, which I so love doing. I truly do. One more, and this wrap up is fabulous. I love this man named McClellan. Don't tell him I said that. It'll swell his fat head. Thank God for Dan McClellan. So grateful for him. All right.
As to the content of that video that you saw?
That part of it, I think they're just speculating about the likelihood of somebody making this up from coming out of Saudi Arabia. This isn't how it would work in their minds. But the Jordan-led codices came out of Jordan, and they were supposed to be Christian artifacts. But people who are engaged in forgery are going to target whoever they think is going to believe it and going to pay for it. And so there's nothing particularly surprising or unusual about the way this is coming about. I think the most unusual thing is that it went through these kind of Hebrew roots, guys. Like, I can see the reasoning of that, but at the same time, the idea that this came out of Saudi Arabia and a priestly family left Jerusalem and took with them these things, like, it's tailor-made for to exploit Latter-day Saints. And so that strikes me as a peculiar coincidence. It would not surprise me if there were some, if there was scheming behind the scenes and they were hoping that this would get picked up, because having been through parts of that part of the world, Latter-day Saints and their and their desire to have artifacts from that part of the world are not unknown.
I'm so grateful that I lined up so well with Dan McClellan. And doesn't matter whether you believe me or not, it's irrelevant. I know what happened. I thought I don't have the expertise that McClellan does. I did not find all of those obvious forgery points on these forgeries, but the same style of thinking, the way to ask a question, say, oh, hold on, that looks shady to me, or, that's a little bit suspicious to me, or I honestly think they saw the Mormons coming and they knew the Mormons would react, stuff like that. I had that before I watched these videos, especially McClellan. And I'm so grateful that I can now think like that, because as an apologist, I couldn't. So don't be too hard on the apologists. Let me do that, because they expect it from me. I'm the loudmouth apostate. But I'm not an apostate. I'm a truth seeker. I no longer let the apostate organization label me. I label me. And that's one way to take power and control for your own life back. So thank you so much for your attendance. You guys, I can't describe what it means to me to have such dear and good friends. To have this fun Saturday. Well, if you're Jewish, Saturday is the Sabbath, but to have a fun Sunday evening with all you guys. To be able to share with you my research. I love doing this research. This week, without exaggeration, I spent 20 to 25 hours putting this presentation tonight together. No joke. That's what it takes, but I love doing it. I love doing it for you. There are people who need to hear this. There are people who wish they had this kind of information. That's what I'm here for. I love helping out people who are scared, who are questioning, who are confused. I'm dazed and confused, so we're in the same boat, but for real. And I am blessed with the capacity, the ability to research, and I've been blessed to get resources to research in, so that perhaps I can give you a more realistic, rounded out picture of both sides, not just one, both sides. That's what I'm about. That's why you keep coming back to the Backyard Professor. Small channel, but powerful information. That's what it's all about. So thank you all. Tell your friends and family. Here we go. I'm going to act like the amateurs again, Tell your friends and family if they are having questions or wondering or wishing they had something new to study that was intellectually stimulating. Tell them about the Backyard Professor, because I'm not going to quit doing this, and I have a boatload more materials to share with you. And I appreciate all of you guys continually attending. Love all you guys. However, it is Sunday evening, and it is time for us to go to bed for some of us. Go watch a Sunday night movie or whatever. So appreciate all of you. Yes, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe and the notification. And please do come back to the video and drop me a line in the comments. Just say hi or I enjoyed the show or whatever, because those comments make a difference on the algorithm. I know you get tired of hearing that from us YouTubers, but we get the inside information behind the scenes. Those are a very necessary component for our success, as are the wonderful financial contributions and your physical presence, etc. The algorithm keeps track of all of that. So thank you for all of your help and time. I hope I don't waste your time. I don't intend to. If I do, let me know, and I will, tighten up the belt. I think I've gotten better through time with experience. So anyway, I love y'all. I have to go. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Yeah, baby. Yeah, I saw Mark Crispin here. I know he had to leave early, but I'm sorry I couldn't interact more with you. Vega Dog, good to see you. Patty Cake. Bernard O'Reilly. Steve Acosta. Lunch with you, my friend. Tessa Don Smith. Love you too. Full Monty. Love you too, buddy. I'm just saying, all of you. Tessa Don Smith. Kendra. Thank you, Kendra. Appreciate you too. The Last Goonie, so good to see you, my friend. Yes. It's been a while, and I'm grateful that you showed up and stuck around. So I appreciate all of you. I've seen more. Where's some others? I'll go through here real quick. I like recognizing you guys, because you mean so. Oh, Debbie Donovan. Yes, you guys mean so much to me. Without you, I wouldn't have as nearly a fun a time online or in life. And Patty Cake, I hope I said hi. Mark Crispy, yeah, he's gone now, so I can say bad things about him. No, I wouldn't. Dan Vogel, of course, and Randy Jordan. Yes, there's the other one. Hello, Randy Jordan. Thank you for making it. Jonah Barnes, thank you for coming on, and several other of you. Doug Vincent, of course. You're like a right-hand man, brother. You're awesome. Don't argue with me. I'm not in the mood. So anyway, Charlotte Bell, thank you. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Rabbit, good to see you, Mr. Rabbit. I know a lot of people think this is a boring waste of time, and you don't have to stick around, but people love being acknowledged, and I am very happy to acknowledge my wonderful, dedicated audience who are the salt of the earth as far as I'm concerned. Dan Vogel, Bernard O'Reilly, thank you. Appreciate you, too. And so I think Muslims call me Almighty. Thank you for showing up. Good to talk to you. Good to see you, I mean. It's good to talk at you. Yeah, I didn't do a lot of talking tonight to the audience, with the audience, so just had a lot to cover. And Joe O'Leary, good to see you. Thank you. Anyway, I'm going to head out. Yeah, people are leaving now, rightly so. So am I. I'll catch up to you next week. Appreciate all of you.